If you're anything like me, the past few months of being on Twitter means you've, at least once every day, come across something Hazbin Hotel related. Unless you've had it muted, which, like, most people I know do. Even then, they can't escape it. So, what do I think of this show that's been all over my timeline? It's fine. It's okay. And you'd think that means there's not much to say about it, but do not be mistaken, it has been plaguing my thoughts for several months now. I think it's real neat that an indie pilot got picked up by A24 of all things and is put on a streaming service, but that also means my standards for it will be much higher than, say, an indie webcomic or something. I want this show to succeed. Not just as an example moving forward for independent creators, but why would I want a show to fail? I like good shows. Who doesn't? Before I start, I want to make a few quick disclaimers. First of all, these are just my opinions. If you don't agree with what I say, that's totally fine. I'm just a guy on the internet who makes videos. Whoever I mention in this video, I'd like to just say don't harass anyone, because if you do, I will find you. And finally, spoiler warning, obviously, because this is a review. Sorry for all these disclaimers, but now that those are out of the way, let's go!
You do my I can sus.
For my sanity, I'm gonna divide everything into neat little sections. 90% of the issues I have with the show is solely in the writing. The animation, other than some of the camera work, is pretty neat. I am normally a bit of a music snob, but like, I don't know, I thought some of the songs slapped. I'd argue some of these would be top tier MLP bangers. I don't expect like Fiddler on the Roof levels of musical writing for a cartoon with 2 songs an episode. They're fun, that's all they need. I have mixed opinions on the character designs, but we'll get into that later. And the show's honestly fairly entertaining. It's not a boring slog to get through, and there's a reason I've managed to watch it multiple times for this review. It's far from the worst thing ever. Some of us have had the displeasure of watching Mr. Pickles or other similarly soul-crushing experiences. It's honestly a miracle I was entertained, because mid-slop intended for kids is obviously not great, but I find a low-quality adult cartoon to be even more hard to sit through. So, good job on that. I mean it sincerely. But yeah, the show's execution leaves a lot to be desired. Firstly, with the... So, I'm just gonna ask this. Whose fucking idea was it to make this show 8 episodes? I mean, come on, seriously. Like, shows are getting shorter seasons with less of a chance to be renewed, and I am entirely sympathetic with that. Of course the impulse would be to just share as much of your baby as you humanly can. Better to get it out there than not at all. I don't know when season 2 is announced during its production, so the thought of the writers having to scramble to just tell anything about it makes me sad. And I'm glad they were able to get something out. I don't think any writer, no matter how talented, could make a 10 out of 10 high fantasy dramedy with a cast this big in 8 20-ish minute episodes. Like, I was in the Steven Universe trenches when it was airing, and I would defend some of the pacing choices with, oh, they're just crunched for time because the Steven Bomb scheduling in CN just doesn't know how to, like, fucking make episodes and order them. And I feel like 2 things can actually be true at once now that I'm an adult. Yes, of course writers can be crunched for time to tell their story. But especially now, considering the current media landscape, you need to prioritize telling a good story rather than including every possible thing you humanly can. The show feels like the first few episodes of Brotherhood sped up to an even bigger extent. Excited to get to certain moments without, I feel, earning them. Because in some way, it feels like they've already reached to that point. I'm expected to care about a character dying or breaking into a power ballad or their tragic backstory being revealed. Not that I don't think some of those are handled well, but I like breathing room, you know? I want to vibe with these characters, get to know them a little bit. Maybe it's unfair to bring up. But to make some of the issues I have with the pacing clearer, I think a good point of reference for this is the first 8 episodes of Avatar: The Last Airbender. The first 8 covers the boy in the iceberg all the way up to the gang going to the Crescent Island where Roku tells them about the comet. Episode 8 is essentially where the plot begins. The gang are given an exact goal and deadline rather than dilly-dallying around. That's not to say the first 8 episodes aren't important, far from it. We learn a lot about the world and lore, we get introduced to some important players later on, but even if we didn't, we get a lot of time focusing on both the gang and Iroh and Zuko, showcasing 5 characters and how they interact with each other. It's made even easier to follow when they're in groups of 2, easier to understand the relationship dynamics and all of that. Though you could argue that it's quite fast in regards to Katara telling Aang they're a family. I think it isn't for a few reasons. Her saying that can be more of a promise to Aang, to appease him from the unbelievable pain he's experiencing after viewing the charred remains of his entire race. but it's also, again, the show willingly choosing to focus on a few characters, strengthening their relationship both of what we see and don't see. The off-screen journey of several weeks is easy to accept, given the show's pacing already from the little we've seen, and the characters feeling like there's been that sense of time passed between them. It's careful not to overwhelm the viewer with information, making it digestible and feel natural. For a show that's influenced almost every cartoon since, it's a shame many people don't get that Atla's biggest strength was its pacing. They want what the show had without actually earning it. Hazbin is not that. Our main group at the hotel is 5 characters. They occasionally shoot the shit together, but it feels like a rarity for scenes to convey any new information about their relationships. However, we're also supposed to focus on some other characters, like Adam and Lute and Carmilla and the V's and Sarah and Emily and Lucifer, and it's a lot to process! And the season finale is this big-ass battle, and I'm just like, imagine if they did book 1 of Atla in 8 episodes. That's what this feels like. They should have chosen another point to end the season. Like the Heaven Conference, maybe? You get a crazy cliffhanger and at least 2 more episodes to flesh things out a little more. However, with the show we actually got, it doesn't know how to manage its own limited time. For instance, in episode 5, what is supposed to be a Lucifer and Charlie episode randomly has this one character hop in only to dump Alistair lore. Could we not have done this another time? We don't get to see much about Charlie's relationship with her father, they more tell us this, rather than actually show it.
So hold up, you got daddy issues?
No, we just have never been close.
So why interrupt an episode about the underdeveloped protagonist of the show with information of an unrelated character that we already happen to have heard in the pilot? And with that, they're basically throwing out any of the pilot, because why would you reiterate the same thing twice in the same storybook style? So no, for that reason and a few others, I am not going to be talking about the pilot in relation to this show because I treat it as a separate entity. Same with the Addict video and same with the Tumblr posts. Alright, back on topic. I'm just gonna spitball on some minor changes I'd make, and I'm specifically going to use Radio Killed the Video Star as an example for this. And episode 2 is easily my favorite of the show, and I think its biggest issue is that it should have been 2 episodes. First half develops the V's a bit more, as well as Alistair's drama with them. Show Vox's control. Show more of what Velvet does. For the B-plot, maybe mix the conference from episode 3, and this could just be a general lore episode about the overlords and the power vacuum left by Lucifer. Have some Alistair lore explanations, do what you want. Then end the episode on the V's plotting on Operation Pentious fucking shit up. The second episode would be said Pentious operation. Maybe include Alistair and Charlie stuff. Build up Angel's jealousy towards Pentious a little more. And have a few times where Pentious calls Vox on his Apple Watch thingy, and show Vox subtly, or unsubtly, degrading him, rather than culminating in the dumbest thing ever when Pentious is caught and tries to escape.
If they don't kill you, go ahead and do it yourself, you miserable failure!
Which this gets into my other major problem with the show. My twin, who helped me write this video, thanks, put it best that this show feels like someone who's only watched cartoons for children and what they think an adult cartoon is like, which, yeah. Not that I have an issue with incorporating elements of things appropriate for kids, far from it. There should be more adult animation with musical segments and the power of friendship and stuff like that. But it feels like the influences of Hazbin are extremely limited to like My Little Pony and Homestuck and Bipper fan art or something. Bruh. Are we good? No? But it's not just the limited influences of the show that come off as immature, but how it tackles certain subject matter. For instance, this scene with Pentious and Angel is one of my favorites in the show for a lot of reasons, which I will get into way later. As part of an exercise, Pentious is role-playing as an innocent kid who's about to be sold drugs. One of the funny things about this is it's supposed to be poking fun at a lot of war on drugs propaganda, which comes from a fundamental lack of understanding of addiction. The problem is, the show is just as laughable in its portrayal of adult subject matter as these old Dare ads.
This is crack.
Though I'm saving the non-comedic handlings of sexuality for a lot later, I think its understanding of it, as well as drugs, make both the comedy and the more serious scenes fall flat, and the jokes just feel tired and immature. Not immature in a silly way, which I don't think all comedy needs to be highbrow, but more so just inexperience. Okay, to make this easier to understand, I'm just going to compare it to Archer. Archer is a filthy show through and through. But the more risque jokes are quite important. They develop the characters and their personalities and backstories, and their relationships with each other.
Can we get off my fingers?
Yeah, they are pretty big.
First time I've heard you complain.
Hi-oh!
Not only do they not hold back in specificity, to the point where you're wondering how this was a major show on network television, but they usually come from a place of embarrassment. Kind of relatable humor expecting the audience to at least be understanding of sex and at least have had it before. Though it's far from one of the raunchiest jokes in the show, one of the recurring bits is phrasing.
Did no such thing?
Well, your mouth did.
Well, your mouth better get over there and make Torvald happy.
Phrasing?
It's basically just a "that's what she said" joke. But what's important is that Archer is the one who starts doing it, much to the annoyance of everybody else. But as the show goes on, more and more people join in on it. It shows something important about the titular character. Yes, he's a jerk, he's really annoying, but he's got an infectious personality that people just can't help joining in on him. Your dirty jokes shouldn't just be for the sake of filth, but like in any good comedy, give information about dynamics, be unique, and say something about the characters. Hazbin is, well, the dirty jokes mainly come from Angel Dust, and they're just not good. The only one I can say is sorta well done is the beginning of Masquerade, where for Show and Tell Day, he shares one of his, videos. It isn't just haha corn funny, but it's an absurd and ridiculous scenario, so it kind of works. The rest are just a part of Angel's comedy quirk, which by episode 1 already feels flanderized. And they're not even that filthy. They're just alluding to the idea of X as if that itself is funny. It's at the same level of when you're in middle school and you're trying to call your mom or something and your friends keep moaning in the background.
Well, you come
Oh, yes.
to the right place.
Love me a man with a giant tool.
Which is a shame because this show happens in hell. Give me something surprising. Why did this show feel so tame and safe? As far as other vulgarities go, look, I've already established myself as not being a prude, and if it isn't obvious already, I curse. A lot. I have a mother from Jersey, this is the hand I've been dealt with in life. But the cursing feels bad. The cursing in Vivzi's shows has been memed on relentlessly already, but it comes to a detriment of the characters, when the comedy should instead service them, if we are to believe that making characters say fucking shit all the time is comedy. Adam curses all the time, and I believe he's supposed to stand out because of this, but he doesn't at all because everyone else already curses in a way that feels out of character too.
That's not very clever.
Okay.
And also, controversial opinion, Charlie shouldn't curse, or at least it should be preserved. She feels like a character who's been isekai'd from a Disney princess movie or something. Imagine if this scene in episode 7 where the old woman was yelling at her during her speech, that this was the first time she said fuck.
Shit, I have a fucking mediocre. Fuck you old bitch!
That would have been genuinely funny, I think, because it shows something unexpected but still in character for her. That this old ass woman is the reason why she's just finally broke. But I don't have to go that far into the cursing because it's already been talked about, but yeah, it's just way too much and just doesn't feel in place. I don't really have much else to say on the general comedy other than it not being my thing. I was also on Tumblr in 2014 and I just don't care for a lot of this as much because I've already seen it before.
Take that, depression!
I mean, the resumes for a lot of these writers are quite impressive, even if I haven't watched Final Space or that Harley Quinn show yet. But yeah, that's really all I have to say on the comedy part. Alright, so you may notice the runtime's almost up, and I clearly have more to say, because I do, but if you couldn't tell from the title, this is a part 1. I'm doing this for several reasons, but if you're interested in more I have to say, then subscribe and click the bell to wait for part 2, or not. It's up to you. Anyways, I'll see you next time.